Into an argument the other night. People were talking about, like, if you die, your cat's going to eat you. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. Like,
Yeah,
now,
that's
if
fair.
I had a cat that was eating me alive, I would clearly have a problem with that.
They do try to do that too. They just don't try very hard.
Yeah, they're testing.
They're lazy.
They're testing. They're like, "Can I eat you?" Then they lick you. They're like, "Oh, never mind. I'll cover up the tracks."
Still alive.
That
Still
spiky
alive
tongue makes it feel like they're still trying to eat you, though.
for
so.
now.
That's their built-in hairbrush.
Yeah.
What happened in the news? No one got hacked, I'm sure.
No, there was no hacks this week, actually.
You know what the funny part is? Most of the hacks are just like, hey, and they finally reported that this happened.
And they
They were told by the SEC. They had to tell us.
What kind of dog is that, Ralph?
It's a doodle Aussie.
I like how you said it was a doodle Aussie, not an Aussie doodle.
I don't know what it's more, doodle.
And it's gone.
Aussie. Yeah, it's gone. It's found a new spot.
So, do you guys want to hear a horrible idea that came up in the content community meeting?
Oh, no.
Sure.
So, the horrible idea was, if you attend enough webcasts, I will name one of our farm animals after you.
That's the award? Like,
That's the
after you
award.
get 10? Are you
So,
just going
like-
to go buy like a bunch of chickens and just be like, all right, here we
know,
go?
right?
Yeah, so it's like this cat was now called Haircut Fish.
I ate Zero Cool last weekend. It was delicious.
And that's the thing that gets me. It's like, Haircut Fish is like, hey, whatever happened to my cow?
Oh, we got people got to eat. Cows
What-
got to.
Yeah, no. Hold on. Can I get like at least a steak? Like, do you like it's butchered, but you get like at least a little steak as like
You get something
in the
out of
mail.
it.
You get
Yeah.
the tongue. You get tongue.
Yeah.
Lingua.
Bronwyn asked, would this one be one of the cows destined for slaughter? Yes, it would be. And then they would.
Where do
get
we?
some.
How do you think we get the steak dinners for Hacking Fest?
Oh my God, that's even better. You serve it at.
And we can go through as people are going through the line. It's like, this is Haircut Fish, and then as we switch over, it's like,
That's fine with me, but you absolutely need to have a vegetarian or vegan option if I'm going to be eating Discord people.
we can definitely do that.
Oh my gosh.
We're at peak jadedness. So.
Yeah.
Oh, do we have Ralph in Mirror Universe again?
No.
Mirror?
He's
No.
the floor.
No,
now.
his universe is the door universe.
Yeah, here, look.
Okay.
No, this is definitely Mirror Universe. I'm scared. I don't like it. This is Mirror Universe.
What?
It's
You got all
definitely
these-
mirrored.
You got all. It's mirrored, and you got all these extra like.
I've been
doodads
working
and
with you
buttons
for
all over
years.
it.
I know what you look like in the right orientation.
This is. Oh, you're right.
Yep, there you go.
The right
See,
orientation.
the Gavin Benson signature is always pointing to the left.
Yeah, it actually looks worse. No, there's no angle that looks okay.
It looks. It yesterday or last week it was mirrored, and people were like, "It's not a signature anymore. It's just yeah."
Yeah.
Just.
And I love that I periodically get people that are offended by it, and I send them that episode or that specific scene in Silicon Valley. And they're like, oh, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Ralph's immature, but it's based on
But it is
something.
funny.
It is funny. It is funny.
No, actually, that was literally I didn't watch like the whole series or whatever, but I watched that episode. It was super, super funny. And the reason I printed it out is not because I loved it. It was because I wanted to do multi-material with the 3D printer, which I ended up doing with
Sure, yeah, use that as your excuse.
Yeah. Yep. There's always an excuse
to print something on a 3D printer.
We could talk about this every single news week, but they stopped that show way too soon.
Yeah, that's true.
They need to bring it back.
So no hacks this week, probably.
None. No hacks.
Yeah.
I ain't got no hacks.
I'm gonna let this monster out.
Nothing too crazy. I don't know. Nothing really stood out to me this week. I guess I'm just like. not caring anymore.
I mean, there's some good ones. Lone Depot, they got popped. There's a 0 day.
Well,
And
don't give it away.
Oh,
Yeah, don't give it away.
Ralph, dude,
Ralph.
Sprosky.
Ralph.
Spanos dies at the end. Oh wait, sorry.
this is no spoilies. I'm just giving you like the little teaser.
Who kills Dumbledore?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
Obama.
Ivanti.
Is it Obama that kills Dumbledore? I forget.
Thanks, Obama.
We'll talk about Ivanti.
It
I gotta
evolved.
find that one. I don't know
can't
where
find
that
it.
story is. I know it's in here somewhere.
It's in there.
So I stopped drinking coffee on Thursday.
Oh, you'll
I'm
go
sorry.
take
My
a
I feel
break.
like I'm a whole
condolences.
new person. Like I'm just lower key now. It's been quite the downturn in my life.
I don't
I
like
immediately
it.
Go back.
Why did you quit?
I was looking at I was looking at my heart rate, right? And I'm like, my heart rate is. I was like watching the scales. I started drinking Vietnamese coffee, right? And I really wasn't like shrinking the amount, and my heart rate was like 10 beats per minute more the past month, and I'm like, oh no, that can't be good.
Yeah, but those
And
are
so-
worth it.
Maybe you're just getting out of shape. It
My-
doesn't
my
have to
problem
be
is-
coffee related.
That's definitely part of it.
Yeah, that's not coffee. That's kids and a job.
All right, that's a good point too. Yeah.
Run more.
Well,
I
he
know.
can
I
eliminate
hate that
one.
too.
He can't eliminate the other.
I mean,
So-
it's just like everything, right? Like, you can do too much, but like coffee is one of those things. It's like you always hear someone that's 100 years old and they're like, what do you credit to living to be 100? And they're like, coffee. Coffee is one of the things that got me here. I love coffee. Don't take it away from me. It's like, okay.
I thought it was cigars.
Huh?
Cigars. I thought it was cigars.
I thought it was heavy
That was
drinking.
just Ed
I
Burns.
thought it was
Whiskey.
heavy drinking. It's all of those things.
Yeah, eating Doritos and heavy drinking is the sign of people that lives to 105.
By the way, if you're joining, don't ever take health advice from a bunch
Yeah,
of IT
any of
security
us.
folks.
This is not a health podcast, nor is it a security podcast. This is an animal podcast.
I've had people come to security conferences for the first time, and one of the things that strikes them is we are not healthy people.
Hey,
At
speak
all.
for yourself. We go mountain biking during security
We
conferences.
do. But if you're looking at the aggregate as a
Oh
whole,
yeah, no, John definitely.
Would you consider us almost the Jerry Springer of news podcasts?
Jerry?
No,
Like,
because
we're
no
not.
one
We're not.
chants
We're like. What's
Johnny,
below Jerry
Johnny.
Springer?
John,
Right? Like what's
John.
below it? Like we
BHIS.
just go crazy off topics and stuff like that. It gets
We're not doctors.
real weird about furries every now and then, but
Yeah.
That only happened once. We said we weren't going to talk about it anymore.
No. I think I've done furries 3 or 4 times.
Oh, well.
You know that Jerry Springer was like a politician for a long time?
He
Anyway,
was.
side topic.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's get it started, folks.
All right.
Beautiful finger footage.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about InfoSec news. This week we have all kinds of fun stories. Chinese APT attack, 30% Cisco routers, 0 day and Ivanti VPNs. We've got new Linux malware that's totally not new, but they've got to say new whenever they put it in the article at Ars Technica. Otherwise, you aren't going to click the link. I mean, I clicked the link, so it must work, I guess, as a thing. Crypto firms exposed to supply chain attacks through GitHub. We've got a lot of stories today. And joining me this week is our illustrious cast of characters. As always, we're joined by Kat. Say hi, Kat. Meow.
Yep.
So that's Kat. Like, I'm jealous of that cat at the moment right now.
Its
That's-
life is everything you wish your life was.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Lots of work. Lots of work.
All right. Also, Alex is joining us. I don't know. Alex has the creepy person behind him with a it's fine.
This is fine. Yep.
The it's fine dog. So we've got more pets here. Feeling awful because I don't have any pets. We have Wade is with us. By the way, welcome back, sir. And he's rocking.
Whoa, that's
red
caffeine
shirt.
free Wade. That's
caffeine free Wade.
Wade.
I trimmed my mustache and I messed up a little and I almost shaved it off.
Almost.
And I got into this like gnarly argument with a couple friends and they're like, do you realize if you keep having that mustache, it's going to be part of your brand? And then I realized it already is. I can't get rid of it.
It's
and
too
now
late.
I'm doomed to have
It's
a
too late.
mustache for the rest
You
of
could
the
cut it
time.
No,
off.
caffeine free Wade can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Maybe caffeine
whatever
Wade,
you want.
not so much.
You're a new man. It's a new you. 2024.
Yep. We also have Kelly Torala. Hello. With her
I am
camera.
also caffeine free.
It's not. No, I know that. It's not floating today. The camera is more locked in position, which is good. So, and we have dog, which actually I know that this sounds weird. We don't have any pictures of dogs.
There was a Discord
There
comment
was a
that said,
dog. He decided that he didn't want to be part of the webcast.
He went out
I
one of the
like-
many doors.
Horrible,
Did anyone
adorable
see the
dog.
Discord comment as we were rolling the finger that someone said, "Who shaved the dog?"
I was dying laughing. You just couldn't hear it.
We don't want that. Don't want that. And then last but not least is Ryan, who keeps this all together and keeps us moving in the right direction. Also, a little bit of news. We have the most offensive con that ever offensive to the bypass edition coming up. So be sure to check out that.
Don't
webcast.
bypass that con. Wait.
We'll bypass that conference.
Oh man, are you?
That was pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump straight in. Which one do we want to talk about first? Can I talk about the Ars Technica article? Because I love
There's
Dan.
two of them.
Let's do
two.
the
Which
Linux
one?
devices under attack by never before seen worm. See,
Never
All right.
before seen.
I love Dan, and I'd love to think that he didn't come up with a title on this one because really, anytime I see this, I'm thinking, oh, wow, it's going to be a new worm. And I'm going through it, and it's like, oh, it's basically just a reskin of the Mirai botnet. It's got a really cool crypto miner in it. It used to be with the crypto miner stuff, you could reverse engineer and gain access to keys. With this particular one, it doesn't actually store the keys on disk. Once the miner has been initiated, then it gets the information that it needs for mining crypto, and it loads it directly into memory, which is really, really, really cool. But it still can be extracted from there. Once again, if you go into the proc file system, go into its process ID, and then copy off exe and some of the other files in that directory, you can do some base level memory forensics on Linux systems. But this, I don't know. It seems like this is yet another Mirai variant. Yes, the way it's doing crypto mining is really, a little bit different, and it is novel. But we've seen, basically direct to memory injection commands for quite a while as well. Also, this particular one, it is a bot. Sorry, not a bot. It is a worm. And I want to explain to people what the difference is. A virus requires something to write on top of, right? It doesn't have any ability for doing locomotion on its own. It requires a file. It requires a carrier. It requires an email. It requires, a website, watering hole, those types of things. Worm, on the other hand, has the ability for self-propagation. And in this particular piece of malware, it self-propagates through really, really crappy passwords. Which
the old SSH.
It's just like
SSH instead of Telnet, baby. We're getting with the
Oh,
times.
they're moving up. They're moving up.
Also, is it the year of the Linux desktop finally?
it is the year
It
of the
is,
Linux
yeah.
desktop again.
Because I've been waiting. I don't know. I mean, this is more of a cloud thing, and I wanted to also talk about the okay, the graph's actually really shocking because the graph tells me that based on this, the graph says this is 30% of their incident percentage. Or maybe is it just 30 incidents? I don't know.
I think this is a graph from their honeypot.
Okay.
So that's probably the incident count on this specific honeypot.
So there have been 30 attempts by this botnet on their honeypot over the past year. Okay. So they also talk about the attacks have only originated from 849 IPs. So this is kind of a niche thing, but I will say I think it's worth talking about because SSH password auth has to die. It just has to die.
I think we got to make that bigger. We've talked about this in the show before, and I think that at BHIS pen testing on the outside, if you're running authentication and there's no two-factor, it's a high. And we talked about it a little bit in some webcasts. We talked about it here. It's been a little bit controversial once again with a number of our customers. But this is why. I mean, you constantly are seeing organizations get compromised because of fundamental lack of two-factor authentication.
And bad passwords. So it's like bad single
passwords.
factor.
There was one thing with cryptocurrency that it does, and it said, we believe that the threat actors choose to run their own private pool instead of a public one, thereby eliminating the need to specify wallet.
Yeah.
Can you explain that, Corey? And someone who's not
Ralph.
I mean, I'll
Ralph
take
or
a
one
crack
of you.
at it.
I don't
First of
know.
all, I'm a cat. First of all, I'm a cat. Meow, meow. Second of all, I'm taking a crack at it. So I believe they're mining Monero. Is that what XMRig does? Am I wrong? So they're mining Monero, and how crypto. I'll try to do this to explain like I'm 5. In cryptocurrency, there are hard math problems, and everyone's trying to solve the same hard math problem. And whoever solves the hard math problem gets the whole block. So it's essentially like all or nothing. Whoever wins, wins. Everyone else loses. So, as you'd imagine, if you're just by yourself trying to solve this math problem, you are very unlikely to solve it when
The
there's a
odds are not
team of
good.
100 people working on it, or 100,000 people. So pooling is essentially, let's all work on the same math problem, and we'll just say, if one of us figures it out, we all distribute the rewards evenly. So essentially, the concept is to share the compute and the rewards, because that's just a necessary thing with cryptocurrency, because of the size of some of the math problems is so large that it would take years and years to solve them. So essentially, the whole pool thing is you pool your compute resources together. So if you're running a botnet, you pool all the compute resources in your botnet into one. And then if you hit a block, or if you win, then essentially the resources are distributed to everyone in the pool. The whole, from like a cybercrime perspective, the reason to do it, like Wade said, is because instead of using a specific one wallet that receives the payouts are distributed to the pool. So essentially, it's the rewards are distributed anonymously by default.
And
the
challenge is dispersed to all the workers in the pool. They don't have to have a crypto wallet to solve the challenge. Once they have solved the challenge, the math problem, then it goes back to the controller of the pool, and then it can submit that response. And then
it distributes the rewards amongst the pool, which can be done at the discretion of the sort of
reason.
In this situation, there's no rewards going back to the workers because it's all being ran by the bot.
Well,
exactly.
I was just going to say, the reason they're using a third party, or they're using their own, distributed working, right? Instead of using a mining pool that's public, is that the mining pool that's public could just be like, oh no, you guys were using this on stolen machines. We're just going to keep the money, right? Because they have to pay out, right? That money goes to one big wallet for everyone that's in the pool, and then the pool distributes that based on how much work you contributed. But since they have their own pool, doesn't matter, nobody to stop them. Right?
So it lets you distribute the money when you want, instead of requiring you to distribute it per.
Yes. But the downside is that like if the pool's really big, they get a very consistent payout, right? Because they win enough, and then you get your little cut, right? And depending how big the mining or the crypto mining network is, will kind of dictate how often you win a block and how much computing power you have.
So, Ryan, can you bring up the current price of Bitcoin, please?
What?
Oh yeah, we should talk about the Bitcoin ETF thing. I'm assuming someone posted that in chat.
42, I think, right now.
Yeah.
But
Ralph, you don't have the price of Bitcoin on a display in your house anymore? That's kind of sad.
I do, actually. It's 42,800.
All right. So we can bring that up. So I want to run this by y'all just because this is just a theory. When Bitcoin went down, we saw a lot more ransomware, right? Like, well, there's my cat. When Bitcoin like cratered, we saw a lot more ransomware where they were actively locking out computers. And now that Bitcoin is super high, we're seeing this story where they're installing miners instead in the botnets. Do you all think that this is a trend that's pretty predictable, or do you think that ransomware is still just going to be ransomware for the quick payout, or do you think that because Bitcoin's getting so high, you're going to see a lot more mining?
Well, the difficulty increases when the price goes up. So, right?
I don't think there's really a connection. I would guess that the connection of actual ransomware attacks I don't think there's a correlation there. I will say I do think there's a correlation between activity of the threat groups and like people are going to want to cash out Bitcoins when they're high. So essentially, like, this is where we might see players making a move to either like purchase additional assets or move money around or whatever North Korea does with their Bitcoin. I don't want to know. So basically, like, I don't think attackers are, because for them it's a means to an end, and everything's negotiated in US dollars. Everything is a $10 million payout or a $5 million payout. It's not negotiated in cryptocurrency prices. So for them it's a means to an end, and they might not be cashing it out right away, but they're definitely laundering it right away. So
See, I don't know. I would like. Part of me thinks if I was running a criminal enterprise, I would really lean towards mining because it's more long term. I think that it has a potentially really good long term payout than just ransomware for millions of dollars.
Mining
And
is
you're going to more
dying a
likely
slow
mine
death.
when it's high up, right? And then when it's low,
Well,
right? And
no,
one of the
yeah.
other articles we have actually has a really good statistic where the estimated damage from cryptojacking is to be about $53 for every $1 worth of Moreno.
Yeah,
so it costs $53, which I thought was
interesting.
Yeah,
well, so the mining thing, like mining cryptocurrencies are going away. Like we've seen Ethereum move to a proof of store, like every
proof of stake and everything.
Proof of stake. Yes, sorry.
Proof of stake. Basically, mining is dying, and the reason mining is dying is because it will destroy the planet before it becomes a decentralized cryptocurrency. Like it comes down to also, like other people have mentioned, mining is less efficient the more people that do it. So when the price jumps, more people mine. It means the mining payouts go lower because more people are mining. So I don't know. I think it's all just a means to an end, and the crypto mining is really the wrong angle to take. But I mean, it is what it is. Like,
I think
that's what they've chosen to do.
The crypto mining just means that people won't possibly discover it that soon, right? So, and there's less likely for it to be like an FBI investigation. Or if you do the ransomware, they're like, oh, let's find out who did this, right? But the ransomware's got a higher payout, so it's all kind of risk reward, right?
Yeah.
Also,
but I also look at it like this. Like once again, if I was a cyber criminal, I could mine and I could be doing doing credential harvesting off of those systems. There's a lot.
It's a why not? Yeah, it's a why not. True.
Yeah, but John, if you're doing mining, you're going to have to do an 8K.
Oh, you have to report that. There's no other way around. There's a special line.
I was really so mad whenever my accountant was like, "No, John, you do have to actually report crimes to the IRS."
You do. You legally. They have like a section in the tax for illegal activities to be reported. I'm just saying.
Did you?
So is that what you fill in?
Yeah,
Ralph?
I always fill that one in.
Or I mean, dog. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the mining thing, I'd be interested. I don't know if anyone can pull this up, but like, how much has this pool hit? Like, how much of a reward has this pool received?
We don't know what the wallet address is.
No, but you can see rewards at a pool level. You can see how many
they're running their own pool. We don't know.
Yeah, they're running their own pool and then submitting.
Yeah,
it's going to look like a single.
Yeah, so like when they're submitting work, it's just I believe it's like an RPC request or HTTP request, right? Like it's not. They're not submitting to the chain, right?
Yeah. Well, Griffin InfoSec brought up a great point though too. Said there's a lot of detections of crypto mining on assets in the cloud via endpoint and network detections, which is great. But the problem with that, I keep coming back to. There's all these amazing security things you can do, but a lot of these organizations, they aren't exactly hitting like a lot of the illegal organizations aren't exactly hitting the best companies that have the best security, right? It's
totally just like and honestly, like most cloud instances have such minimal CPU that this is going to be like, the payouts have got to be tiny. Like if you think about most Amazon instances, they have CPU credits that they'll consume in like roughly 24 to 48 hours with like 100% usage. And then it'll just significantly limit down the, CPU ability. I mean, that's the other reason why mining has gone away is because it's just really inefficient of generating money, but it's a free thing. If you're a threat actor and you might as well run a miner, you go ahead and do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this goes
all right.
Goes well with that other article of where is it? Scroll down. The guy who created 1 million VMs hacker spins up 1 million virtual servers to illegally mine crypto.
Yeah, Ryan's grabbing it right now.
So pretty much the 29-year-old Ukrainian spins up a whole bunch of servers.
Hacked accounts.
Via hacked accounts.
Okay,
in order to create in order to just mine. And they wind up catching him too, which is always fun. or at least supposedly. He's
So-
also Ukrainian, right?
This is really common too with any kind of AWS or API keys or whatever. You just jump on there, spin up as many instances as you possibly can off of the account. You spin them up in every region if you have AWS, for example. And
which is why they have limits on the accounts and what they can spin up and all that stuff.
Yeah, most of the limits on there are actually just so if somebody does break into your account.
Yes,
even though
there's
AWS
super low
gives
limits.
Yeah. Well, AWS gives you like enough to literally hang yourself. So
not by default anymore. Like as an example, you can't even spin up any GPU instances.
Oh no,
without...
I disagree with that. Like the amount that we spend on AWS, like they like those.
Well, so
yeah,
fun
those
fact:
limits,
how
they
much
aren't
you
in
have
place for it.
limits is based on how much you spend. So like
Yeah,
if you're a free account, you get like you get a super low limit. If you're spending like 10K a month, you have like an unlimited limit. It's like it's like credit limits, you know.
And that goes into what was it, Citigroup? God, what was the name of that? All right, there was a bank that was hit, and it was through their cloud infrastructure, and same concept. Like they spent a lot of money, so it was really easy to spin up these miners underneath the wire. They didn't even detect it that way at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen customers that have had over 100,000 a month easy in cloud bills that are just spinning it up. I think with AWS,
that's BHIS. We're a baby company.
Well, John, you might be finding out about our secret crypto mining operation. Yeah. Don't look behind the curtain.
God damn it. Well, okay. So I haven't told the story in a while. Did I ever tell you like the story about? So I'm going to mention somebody who's in politics, everybody, but I want you to know this isn't a political story. Okay, just keep in mind. So years and years and years ago, BHIS was at a like an office complex, so an incubator center for South Dakota. And every once in a while, they would bring dignitaries through, right? They would go through and they would see like, here's Caterpillar, they're here. Here's this guy that makes custom skis, and he's here. And then they would come and they would visit us, and they would bring in these politicians. And Kristi Noem came in, and she comes in and she's like, what do you guys do? We break into stuff. This is back when she was in the House of Representatives. And like, we hack into places. That's what we do. And she's like, oh, wow, any places that I would know. We had some conversations about that. And she goes into our server room, which is just filled with servers, like all kinds of servers and fans and all that, which you'd expect in a server room, right? And she looks at it and she goes, so this is, what do you use this for? I'm like, well, we're cracking passwords. We're doing this. We're doing that. She goes, wow, with all these servers, you could absolutely mine crypto, couldn't you? And I'm like, well, we could, but you wouldn't want us to do that because the state of South Dakota is paying our power bill. Like in this incubation center, we get this space. And by the way, we're still not doing this. We bought an entirely different building. Like we get the space and we pay a flat fee. I think it was like $1,500 a month for 1,000 square feet, and the power comes free. And no, I don't think the state of South Dakota would want us mining cryptocurrency. And then one of the people that manages it said, oh no, you totally should mine crypto. That's what the South Dakota Incubator Center is all about. And it got real quiet in that server room for a little while. Nice to say that by the time we got out of there, we were spending more on power, or the state of South Dakota was spending more on power than we were paying in rent. So take that for what
That's why free power is never something you should say to anyone ever.
Yes.
Never ever say that, especially password cracking rigs. That just
I will if you have free power right now, I will mail you a rig. Just give me an address.
That's the fish to send to Corey if you want a free
we don't have
computer.
free power anymore. We don't have that anymore.
All right, I'm still sending you a rig anyway.
Still sending me a rig. Well, you got to come out. You got to install it. All right. So, do we want to talk about the 0 day and the VPNs?
Yes, we should.
So yeah, organizations using Ivanti Connect Secure should take action immediately because they're actively exploiting two critical 0 day vulnerabilities that allow them to bypass two-factor authentication. Whenever I was like reading this, I was like, you know what the world needs? Another VPN provider. We really need more of those. So nope, it's just the WebSSL VPN, and I think the standard VPN appliance. And they do see this being actively exploited by Chinese nation state attackers. So yeah, it's just so far low numbers and highly targeted attacks are what they're seeing at the point of the exploit right now. So I don't know.
This is
God,
both
VPN
connect secure.
I'm scared. I don't like VPN 0 days. Those 3 words, VPN 0 day, is like every security team's worst nightmare.
It is.
It's so bad.
So
It is.
I think the other thing too that is kind of interesting about these VPN vulnerabilities, it's kind of how they're architected, right? So typically, when you get onto a VPN, you kind of get access to the whole internal network. It's kind of just like some big flat network out there. And by the way, there's other ways to engineer this, zero trust networks and other kinds of VPNs, which only connect to the assets that they're trying to communicate.
And on that note, Ralph, how many times have we gotten access to a company that's properly set up VPNs? We gain access to the VPN through creds or whatever, and it's literally just an isolated network.
Yeah.
You still have to access and still have to authenticate to all the services. It's not like wide open and flat.
Yeah. So I think
that sucks.
It's kind of a so the reason why the VPN is such a scary thing, as Corey brought up, is because it's usually like the last line of defense before the internal, like everything in the internal.
It's the thing where the security team said, as long as they're on the VPN,
yes, as long as they're on the VPN, they're very good, right?
Well,
and then there's like 50 things that they can get to.
And a lot of that is driven by managers, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like,
Yeah.
you know, I have to sign into my stupid VPN, and then you're making me authenticate again. Like,
yeah.
So
I'm already on the VPN. What more could I possibly do?
Yes, I
What
think
are
in
the
the
odds?
future, I really like the idea of the zero trust VPNs, right? Where you're actually only connecting, or like the more mesh style VPNs instead of a hub spoke architecture where you connect into the VPN and now you get access to everything in the internal. Moving to a more, decentralized, right? So you're connecting to the one asset you're supposed to have access to, and either you're supposed to be able to connect to that machine or you're not, right? Now, obviously, in the scenario of, let's say, even if you did set this up and you did a great job, every employee may be able to talk to the internal SharePoint or whatever it may be, right? But still, though, it does limit the exposure, right? It's like layers in the defense, right? So if somebody does,
just so you know, this does, according to the marketing that I'm looking at, absolutely does support zero trust.
Yep.
So, also, like, I don't know how many people have heard of this. Personally, I don't see this commonly implemented. I see way more Cisco and Pulse Secure and stuff like that. But
this is Pulse Secure.
It is Pulse Secure.
It is Pulse Secure?
Yeah,
but they rebranded it?
Yes, they bought it.
Yes. This is Pulse
no.
Secure.
This is Pulse.
So wait, why is it called Ivanti Connect Secure, not Pulse Secure? Is
Because
it
they bought it. It's formerly known as
And
Pulse Secure.
and in a couple of months, because of this hack, it's going to be called something different.
Also, I want to follow up Corey's point about the zero trust model. They all can do this if you get the premium platinum E10 license that does all the fun stuff, right? But most people aren't deploying that, right? So.
Of course. So, all right. So I did want to take a moment. By the way, a lot of people, we do this live on YouTube and on LinkedIn and all the different places, but we are also a podcast. So you can subscribe to our podcast and then you can ignore it for 5 episodes and then you can resubscribe to our podcast again because they'll wipe it away because that's the way podcasts work now. But no, we could, if you want us to be like hanging out while you run or something, that would be weird and awkward, but
we'll run away from the sound of our voices.
I suck at this. Like, how
Remember-
do you,
Well,
like,
John, here's what you
Don't
say.
worry.
If you're listening to this right now and you're running, either run a little faster or just turn around right now.
I'm just gonna say, if you're running, you're doing awesome. Keep it up.
Don't give up on
This,
yourself.
if you're
doing
running with
great.
me on, if you're running with me on the podcast, this is probably as much exercise as I'm going to get.
Alex is like,
Also,
thank you for letting us live vicariously through you.
Yeah,
So,
if you're running right now, add me to your Strava once you finish.
there you go.
you can also listen to the podcast while you're cleaning, cooking, and avoiding other things you don't want to do.
Oh,
Driving.
nice. Good point.
I listen to podcasts while I'm driving. Number one thing.
Yeah, drive.
Or what I hear a lot of people, and this is kind of a pro tip, you can listen to the podcast while you're working. And it's technically work. Just tell your boss
Whoa.
it's work because it's security.
I do
It's
not
fine.
approve of this, Corey. Like, as your boss, you're supposed to be uncomfortable and in pain while you're working. But
Oh, well, I have the
you're
plaque
working
you
in
sent me
Jira
on
most
my
of the day,
desk.
so I guess that checks out.
Yeah. You know what I find really weird is like other podcasts like edit their podcast, like they chop the audio up and get rid of.
Wait,
all,
we
like,
can
the
do that,
stupid
Ryan?
stuff. Right,
No.
right. There's no way we could do that. Like that's
No,
that's
we
all.
put our
then,
feet-
then there would be no
No.
podcast. It'd only be like 10 minutes if we edited out everything
They'll-
else.
Ryan, roll the
theme-
finger, burn it. Burn it.
The theme of the podcast is we all get egg on our face, and then it's fun. That's the point.
Yeah, that's it. All right, next story. This is okay. So speaking of advertising, I'm gonna slide this in there. We do continuous pen testing where we don't just do a point in time pen test. We do it over the year. We call it the anti-SOC continuous pen testing, black teaming. I don't know. There's a lot of names for it. We haven't stuck on anything yet. And one of the things that we're struggling with is like, what is the amount of social engineering that should be part of like what we do in continuous pen testing? I mean, as it stands now, we do social engineering for standard pen tests and red teams and things like that, and that's great. But it really boils down to like, how much should we be doing? There's the next story I want to talk about. Basically, hospital help desks targeted with sophisticated social engineering schemes. And I really, really like this one while we have a number of people reading into it. And I want to pull in some of y'all's thoughts because they actually did get some data from the help desk people for this for this social engineering. They actually leveraged other data breaches to basically come to the table as part of their social engineering pretexts to be far more believable. And we look at MGM, we look at this. Is this kind of like, is this something that's always been there, or is this now a new trend? We're starting to see more social engineering and attackers leveraging this, maybe because endpoints getting more secure. And Alex, like, I want to get your opinions on this too, and what you all deal with, like how easy it is to find personal information about people, and then you can leverage that against them. I know like your background with Trace Labs isn't necessarily pretext for social engineering, but goddamn, the steps are real close to the same.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times we reflect on like the stuff Trace Labs uses and does. We said that in the wrong hands, this can be absolutely terrifying. And yeah, threat actors can find this types of information and present this up to even just cloning voices. They take a sample off of YouTube, use that, clone a voice, and put forward these requests. And I think Scattered Spider was one of the threat actors that was doing this. So it's not.
Yeah, I think this news article is basically just a leaked pen test report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we
we
did
do
this to all of our customers, and it had mixed success. But basically, what I would say is you got to make sure this isn't possible. Like you got to make sure your help desk people can't just strip factors off of people's accounts. Like that is a big red flag. It's getting close to, we talked about last week about the single factor auth thing. That's kind of the hill I'm dying on nowadays. Is I'm saying if I can call your help desk and pull MFA factors off, it's a vulnerability. Like no matter how much social engineering I did, or how much recon I did, or how much, it just shouldn't be possible, especially not for high privileged accounts or high, like financial, like this organization, they're targeting financial accounts. I don't think it's been specifically attributed to Scattered Spider, but like Alex said, this is totally up their alley. Yeah. This is like exactly their TTP. This is exactly what they do. I will say, I don't think they did much recon in the past. It's adding recon.
Their game. And I read through the article, and it still comes across like very, very dry with how, with explaining how the social engineers did their steps. There's probably a lot more, meat on the bones there, with a lot more, dialogue and persuasion. Who did they impersonate? What sort of, pressure points did they utilize?
I'm actually going to push back a little bit, because I'm in a position where I actually have heard one of the calls that was made by Scattered Spider, and it is so basic. It is super. It is like, so it made me feel so good and bad at the same time of like, hey, here's a social engineer at work, and they're not doing any social engineering. Hey, my name's blah. I need access to my account. I got a new phone. That's it. That's basically.
They're just reading a script out.
It's so basic. At least the one that I heard was super basic. It didn't have any, like you said, pressure points or anything like that. I'm not saying that necessarily is this hospital attack, but in general, the social engineering required is minimal because you're asking the help desk people to do their jobs, right? You're saying like, hey, can you do your job that you have an exact script to do, which is to help me access my account? So it's like, really, that's why I've fallen on the side of just don't let it happen at all. Don't let your help desk do it.
Mention my idea there, where too many people on autopilot when you're talking about like these hospitals, help desks, large organizations that you can sit there and go, okay, it's something where you're not demanding that I get up out of my chair and walk over and fix your printer. It's just, okay, you have all the information and I just need to do a couple of things. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, someone asked what happened to user verification. So just to make you paranoid, pretty much anything you can come up with for user verification, someone can find via recon.
Yeah.
Well,
whether it's
we can usually buy it for like $5.
We can either buy it. So yes, we can buy it for $5. We can find it via recon. And here's the most terrifying thing. We talk about Steeler logs every week, so I'm going to get in my weekly Steeler log thing.
Here we go.
In the cases where we target people, a lot of the time we have a Steeler log that is ran on their computer and actually has all their autofills from their browser. So potentially that information could be your address, your credit card number, your social security number, but it could also be the security question answers you put when you filled in your security questions, or like that could just be saved by your browser because it's super conveniently saving that information for you. So like, yeah, it literally be like security question 1, and then it has the answer like, the shins or whatever the answer is. Yeah. So it's like that's yeah, exactly. So that's like and that's what threat actors that are scaling at this size, they're just going after the targets that they have that information for, right? So they're doing the recon first. They're saying, what hospitals can we find employees that are fully compromised? And then they're using that information to basically walk through. So essentially like any employee verification you can do other than like proof of life, like literally send me a picture that has a timestamp and says, I want my password reset. And even then you have to
there's an
AI,
ML there's an LLM or whatever, the image creator that made one with the confirmation page for Reddit, and that was all
the biggest. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that like I tell security teams nowadays is this task should be handed off from the IT department to the security department, and the security department should make the determination of whether it's malicious or not. Right? It's like, hey, the security team needs to sign off and say, we talked to this user in person, we compared it, we looked at a picture, or we called them, or whatever.
They had to come in the office in person to do this high level administrator privilege change, right? Like,
whatever.
It's not that hard. It's not going to be that often. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, whatever
as a blue teamer, I would hate that. I would hate to be on that.
But I want to get back to the core question. Like, how much of an emphasis should like red team like engagements have on this? Right.
Oh, 100%.
Because one of my goals is to rewrite the penetration testing execution standard in 2024. And, that was used by a number of people and it was good for a while. And then it got weird. And I'm really trying to figure out, like, I know it's a strange world. But I'm trying to figure out, like, how much emphasis should I put on this as a thing? So part of me feels like a lot, because I feel like that's where the industry is going to be in the next 5 years, that, endpoint and all that is going to be far more difficult. Like, we're going to be seeing a lot more social engineering and physical coming.
When I started pen testing, Dave Kennedy was telling stories about how he'd just walk into a company and take a computer with him like that. This has been a thing forever. But I think if I was like writing the pen testing execution standard right now, what I would say is, social engineering should always be in scope if there's a justification and it benefits another part of the pen test, right? Like, there's so many cases. I don't think doing social engineering just to do it is necessarily beneficial. But if you can justify it as like, well, we compromised an account, but it has MFA. Are we approved to go try to social engineer them for a code? Or, hey, we got into, we want to try calling the help desk instead of trying password guessing, or whatever the whatever the flow is. If I was writing the standard, I would say SE should be approved by default anytime it has a justification or a component. You know what I mean?
So kind of with that, then, one of the problems that I have currently with social engineering is the way a lot of organizations try to get us to do it. Not all of them, right? But every single pretext has to be approved. It has to go through HR. It has to go through management. And inevitably, it turns into this really watered down social engineering engagement. I always like telling the story where we basically saw that the company we were going after partnered with a shoe company. And we did a spearfishing engagement, which is part of social engineering. That was basically, hey, thanks for partnering with us for this charitable event. Here's a discount for 20% off of our shoes. Like, it worked. It was an amazing ruse. And it got us into a tremendous amount of trouble because the customers were pissed that they didn't get their discount for their shoes. Or whenever you're trying to do a social engineering pretext pretending to be a CTO or a CEO or a CFO, a lot of organizations just really, really, really do not like to have anybody impersonate the executives in the company because it's going to create distrust with the executives. It just gets watered down all the time. And I don't think that this will be too much of a problem with continuous pen testing customers. I think a lot of them get it, but I think just the standard rank and file companies doing pen tests, is it worth doing social engineering if it's an absolute just watered down version of it as well?
I want everyone to know that I spent 2 weeks tracking info stealer logs and built out 10 detections for it just because of Corey yelling every week about it. So I am locked down. Do not come after me.
So you're saying, Wade, that social engineering works?
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, I guess.
I think any pen test, the goal of the pen test, it's I always use the analogy of we're doctors. If you walk in with a bleeding stump, I think that's the highest priority. And sometimes that social engineering is the bleeding stump of pen test. If I check your external and, I didn't find any 0 days, and then I can just call the help desk and say, hi, this is Brian, the admin. I need my password and my MFA reset. If I can do that, that is such a higher priority than you have SSL version 2 on your website. That's going to get you hacked.
Oh my God. Right?
So it's just a matter of pen testing needs to prioritize the most highest risk things to the business. And if social engineering is that, we need to, it's our job to figure out how to sell that to, the board or the security teams or whatever.
Can I throw in one more curveball in this too? Because John, you brought this up and you're kind of talking about, should we be doing social engineering and other things like that? I've done a customer in the past where we did a red team or whatever you want to call it, and we destroyed them, right? The first time, whatever. The second time we destroyed them. The third time I literally told sales, I was like, listen, they don't need a red team. Okay. They need to focus on things before this, right? They need to focus on the remediation. They need to focus on these things, right? And they were adamant that they wanted this red team, right? And I bring up that story to talk about social engineering. Sometimes customers are just we know that's what we need, even if we advise them, hey, we don't think this is what you should get, right?
And that's fine. As long as we put it out there, we put it out there.
Yeah.
So Kelly, I got a question for you.
Yes.
So I think that there's a lot of times people in infosec, they sit around like this, it's like a water cooler. We all talk about what infosec should do and what it shouldn't do. You've been in the midst of making the sausage for compliance standards for a long time. Is it easy to get a good idea? And this is a totally leading question. Is it easy to get a good idea put into a compliance standard? Let's say we say, every organization should do social engineering and every organization should mandate 2-factor authentication as part of a compliance standard. How hard is that to actually get through the political process of becoming a standard?
Well, there's two answers there, or two questions there, I think, John. One is internal in your own company, how to get it part of your compliance standard. And that uphill battle, I think, is easier because the pond is a little small.
Whoa. That internal politics is easier? Okay.
It depends on the organization. Okay. But at the same time, it might be easier compared to let's say we wanted really defined social engineering standards in the CIS controls. I can tell you that would entail a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, and a lot of justification. So to get something like that into a more publicized framework or best standard, it is difficult.
And what are the common pushbacks on something like that? It hasn't been done before. I'm trying to figure out, Like, you know, I'm in a
It's too
meeting,
hard.
I'm in a room with a whole bunch of people, and I make the case. It's like, hey, most of the breaches that we're starting to see are for organizations that are missing two-factor authentication. Let's make this a standard for ISO. Let's make it a standard for NIST. Let's make it a standard for this. Like, what are the points of pushback on that? And part of the reason why I want to know is because like the password complexity thing that I just drove for years against PCI, where PCI's minimum standard was, I think it was like 7 characters. And it took forever. And I literally had people calling me up and like, dude, you don't want to mess with the PCI mafia because those guys will mess you up.
John, can I give you an analogy?
Sure.
It's like rat hair and food. You know, we all eat a certain amount of ick because the bar is set. You know, we will tolerate a certain amount. I think when it comes to frameworks and standards, some things are just too dang hard to implement across many organizations, or people perceive them to be too hard.
That's it.
Are you tracking with
Yeah,
me?
and-
Nope, I'm
Yeah.
tracking. I'm tracking. And I kind of knew that that was the answer, but I wanted to hear someone who.
And John, like another example I thought of was like places pushing MFA. At least 2 places that I've worked, there's been a rationale given that there are groups of employees that cannot have the phones for 2FA. So they're like, we have teller line, they can't do it. We have people out on like the manufacturing line, they need to log in and not have MFA because they can't have their phones out on the line.
See, and that's one of those things that I think is a compliance trap, right?
Yep.
Where people start using compliance as a reason to not do something, right? Like, and the reason why that bothers me so much is anytime we do an audit or things, there's always exceptions, right? Like you can look at it and you can say, okay, well, cool. Well, overall in the organization, we can implement 2-factor authentication. But when we have the subset, we can document that subset and have the compensating controls around that subset. And there was a gig that I worked on with Kelly years ago. I don't even think I can even mention a little bit about it because I think people will figure out who it was. But like seriously, Kelly, I don't know if you remember, this is the organization that had Telnet everywhere. And I told them that's bad. Don't do that. They wanted a second opinion. And Kelly came in and heard that and was like, no, that's freaking bad. But they were literally saying things like, we're going to completely ignore this entire compliance standard because it's hard. And then it was like, well, patches and updates, we're not going to do those because our stuff is so old, we can't update it and we can't patch it. It became this absolute compliance nightmare. And I get that. I really, really, really do, that it's hard. But to not do like something in a compliance document across an entire organization because of a smaller subset that can't implement it is not really the way that was designed. So it should always be designed, identify your exceptions, and then identify the compensating controls. Kelly, did I say that right?
Oh, John, that was so good. I think I've heard that before. I'll add one other thing to what you're saying there. That was so good. And I'm getting all warmed up and excited now.
Okay.
You know, when some organizations are writing their policies, they say exactly that. I'm not going to do MFA because, well, once it's in the policy, then those dang compliance people are going to come after me, and the auditors, they're going to fail me. And I love what you said about writing exception documents. Put it in your policy, write an exception document, or write something that says, we're working on it. We've got percentage of systems complete. You know, we all know, working with CJ internally, he always wants to know what percentage is complete. Same thing with controls and implementing MFA or any sort of other compliance headache.
Mm-hmm. And Radis just brought up a great point. Exceptions can be abused. Watch out for the abuse. And we totally like it's one of those things when you go in and you start talking to the customer, it's straight up obvious right out of the gate. Like whenever you're looking at the exceptions and it's just like nothing but a sea of exceptions as far as the eyes can see, you know that you're going to have a really bad engagement on it. But no, I would much rather have, actually, if I had to choose, I'd rather have more exceptions than people that just wholesale ignore the frameworks completely.
But much like the ER, if you walk in with a bleeding stump and ask for cold meds and then refuse to be treated, you can leave. That's all you. If you want to, that's also, I wanted to say, pro tip, make sure that you're, as an IT and security org, you're ready to react when you get breached. Because and what by react I mean push in all the changes that you've been that you what I'm saying is you know how every week we have the job posting at the company hiring new security engineer with super good experience with MFA. That is a real phenomenon, and when breaches happen, security teams need to be ready to capitalize and say, okay, we're going MFA everywhere, because this is why we can't have nice things. And that's really how it is.
That's the thing that pisses me off is I've seen this cycle happen multiple times where I go in, talk to a company and say, here's all the things you should be doing. Or we have a pen test. We're like, that right there is really bad. You all need to fix that. And they're like, well, actually, we can't. We can't, or we won't, or it's hard, or you can't make me, and I'm mad at you. And then it's like we end up kind of quietly firing those customers where they come back and they're like, hey, we'd like you to bid on this year's pen test. We just kind of say, sorry, we're really busy. We can't right now, because we know that there are train wrecks waiting to happen. And then inevitably what happens, like usually within the space of 2 years, somebody from that company comes back to me and they're like, hey, you know that thing that you said was really, really important? Griffin just said it's only an internal thing, or all those. Yeah, we totally got exploited.
You have to connect to the VPN. See today's Zero Day for a reference on why that's not a good idea.
And the follow-on from that is always the same. It's like all those recommendations that you had in the report, we managed to get those things implemented in less than a week to get up and running. It's like, it's only hard until it's not, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, like multiple people said in chat, Vinyl Groove and others said, don't let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth for every blue
teamer? But that is a window, by the way. That window is about a month to 2 months. After you've been breached, to get management and having their attention and getting in all these things in security that you wanted, you have probably a 60-day window. So what I recommend everybody do, and this is another thing, like when we do pen tests, a lot of times, you know, we'll have systems administrators say, yeah, I knew about that. Yeah, I knew about that. Yep. And that's fine. It's not malicious or anything, but a lot of organizations, the security teams and the systems administrators, they know where the skeletons are. They know where the problems are. And I recommend, you know, putting in a request in an email, making sure it's documented, or just have it hot and ready to go. So whenever that breach happens, you got to strike, just like, you know, Corvus just said, strike while the crisis is hot. So you're ready to go.
And tell your pen testers the host names of the really crappy servers you want nuked.
Yeah, it just make it it's like tipping your waiter. It's like tipping your
exactly. Send us an email that says, yeah, hey, you should take a look at this. And then we're like scanning it and it's like, exposed SMB, exposed etc. And it's like, now it's in a pen test report. Now we can fix it. Yeah, it's
now it can be done. Help us help you.
Do you guys get that a lot? Because like my experience has seen that like, every time we're like, hey, we need this on the report. We need this on the report.
Yes, I would 100% say. I mean, obviously we have integrity standards, but I always ask my customers, what can I put on the report for you? What are your
doesn't mean we're going to make things up, right?
Yeah,
you know? But we
have to confirm it's really a problem. But
they're like, hey, you put this in as a medium. If this and this happened and you did these things, okay, go do that. Okay, now it's a high. Now we can take care of that. And that's the collaboration that you're ultimately looking for with customers.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of times where it's like, why am I here? Like, you guys knew this. Like, you knew you needed to patch your systems. You know you needed it. We just needed someone from outside of the company to come in and say that it was important. That's it.
Yeah. And also how you report things has a huge swing. If I say, oh, steel logs are bad. Okay, cool. Like no one cares. But if I say, I have every piece of information you put in your browser and here's, you know, a sample of it or whatever. Now it's like, I'm terrified. How do I fix, what do I do? Yeah. It's about showing the impact. And that's where a lot of pen tests, I think, fall short. They're like, well, it said it was vulnerable, so I reported it as vulnerable, versus saying, here's the CEO's email inbox. Bad.
Yeah. It says 10 in Nessa, so it must be bad, right? Like, it has to be.
All right. So with that, let's draw it to a close. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we're a podcast. Get it on your phone. Favorite it on like whatever.
Run faster.
You do.
Run.
Attaboy.
And we also do pen tests, security assessments, SOC, whatever. If you need stuff, call us. We're here. We're here for you. And that's about all that I got. Thank you so much. Bring out the crooked finger.
Here it is.